I teach at Houghton for lots of reasons. Chief among them being, this is a time in students' lives there's just this incredible amount of change going on for them. And I remember that time in my life. I was a student at Houghton too, being in the same place and being able to walk with students while they're in the middle of these huge transitions. It's such a privilege for me to do that. And so part of that is my Dean of the Chapel work as the campus pastor, but part of that is in the classroom too, and getting to see their eyes light up and struggle with new information and come to grips with it and learn something new and come out on the other side ready to face the world in a different way. That's why I do what I do. So to be in a place where most, if not all, the students are really deeply passionate about what they're doing keeps me fresh, keeps me alive, keeps me on my feet. I'm very interested in studying preaching and kind of the intersection of story and preaching. How does a preacher function as someone who tells us stories, who interprets the world for people? So that's my main interest in research, is preaching as story. Houghton's location is probably the most unique thing about it, but one of the real strengths about it is the chance to really double down on community, be close together, ask each other difficult questions, push each other to think differently. And when you're out together like this in the wilderness, it's a good experience that way, because you can't just run away from each other and from those hard questions. I would think that most of our graduates do go on to pastoral ministry. That would probably be the number one career prospect. We really train our students well for graduate school too. Other schools may send students directly into pastoral ministry more often. We more often send students to seminary, not exclusively, but we leave our students really well prepared for that next step as well. Now, faith is incorporated in the classroom in lots of ways, some very specifically related to the course content, but also, again, related to the way that we try to teach up here, which is to say we're not here to break people, we're not here to push them beyond what they can bear, but we are here to really rigorously turn their minds to the things of the faith and help them focus on this mystery that we believe as Christians is at the heart of the universe, that God really does love us so much that he came to earth and that he took on flesh. And so we try to embody that love in the way that we teach, in the way that we act towards each other. But most often our calling springs out of knowing who we are in God's sight, which again ties back to that idea that God loves us in this deep way. When we know that we're loved, when we know that we are God's children, but that we're not God himself and that we don't run our lives. But when we know really well that we are humans and that God is God, then we can really come to grips with the idea that God might want to partner with me to do something. And we can start looking for little patterns in our lives for when we see God using us, and we can kind of build on those patterns to say, okay, if God used me like this when I was a student, and like this when I was a student, and like this, maybe there's a job or maybe there's a path in my life that I can do more of that stuff, where I can continue to do the things that God has called me to do.